tell me about the podcast and give me some background on that.
Yeah.
It's a good place to start. What's it called?
The podcast is called Rebel Chatter. It is the Star Wars podcast that wants to know your Star Wars story. So basically, we bring people on, and they can tell how they fell in love with Star Wars. You know, like how they found it, what it means to them, and how it applies to their everyday life, like their fandom and all that. Okay. So that started. That was about 1.5 years ago, and I co-host that with my father. So it's two cool generations of Star Wars fans. We've had some pretty awesome guests on the show. We had Roger Christian, who designed the original lightsaber, on. That was crazy to talk to him. You know, hearing him kind of say like, he's like, oh yeah, George, and I'm like, you mean George Lucas? Like, who are you talking about? Just very casually dropping these names, and like Steven Spielberg, you know, like, so that was crazy. That is cool. But we've had some really cool guests, you know, and like I said, the point is, you know, bring people on and let them tell their Star Wars story, and some really interesting stories have come out of that, like some very unique ones, but everybody's is kind of the same at the same time. Everybody's like, when I was like 5 years old, you know, my dad or, you know, somebody showed me this movie and changed everything. So it's really interesting to hear everybody's take on it.
So what's your Star Wars story?
Well, my Star Wars story is when I was about 4 years old, I was told this, I don't remember exactly, but I was rummaging through my dad's closet, and this box fell down, like a shoebox or whatever. Opened it up, and there were all these little figures inside, and I was like, Dad, what's all this? You know, playing with him, and he's like, I'll show you what it is. So then we watched A New Hope, and nothing obviously has been the same since. Yeah. And, you know, I fell in love with the movies because from such an early age watching it, it really became my inner mythology. Okay. You know, it was kind of how I related to life in a weird way, you know, because it obviously is a fantasy story, but, you know, I find myself like, oh, what would Luke do? You know, stuff like that.
Lessons to be told.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the morals of that have really kind of driven, you know, what I do now and my whole life, really. Because I found it so young that I don't really remember not having Star Wars. Yeah.
Who's your favorite character?
Luke.
Yeah? Why?
Luke Skywalker. Well, because he's that flawed, and as much as people don't really think before Episode 8 that he was a flawed character, he really is. You know, he goes through all this turmoil in his life, these horrible things, and still, you know, he comes out on the other side, no matter what. Even after Episode 8, you know, people had a weird thing with Episode 8. You know, Luke was a little weird at the beginning, but at the end, he did, you know, he saved inspired the galaxy again. You know, it was pretty crazy. But, so it's definitely Luke.
It was really Luke being Luke, though. I think he did a good job with it.
Oh, completely. Yeah. People kind of get weird about it because they're like, oh, he was the good guy. And in Episode 6, not to go on a whole tangent about it, he was always very flawed. Like, he's force choking people in 6. That's not a nice guy thing to do, you know? Yeah, true. But he's a flawed, interesting character. And the dynamic with Vader and him, and it's interesting to me.
Least favorite character?
That's hard. I appreciate a lot of some of the characters that not everybody likes. Okay. You know,
so you're a Jar Jar Binks fan?
I would have to say yes. Jar Jar is probably my least favorite character. Okay. But I appreciate what they played the fool. You know what I mean? Palpatine kind of played him because if you watch the movies in like Episode 2 and all that, Jar Jar like helps get him emergency powers and make him kind of a dictator. So, and some of the books kind of explain that he was really messed up after all that. He was like, I did this. This was my fault. You know, it was interesting. Oh, that's cool. For them to do. Yes, but Jar Jar's probably my least favorite character.
Yeah. So you dig deeper than the movies? You read the books, and I see there's some of the comics.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a big fan of all the expanded universe stuff that's now deemed the Legends material. But I was happy when they kind of brushed the slate clean, because I wouldn't exactly want to see those books made into movies at this point. Okay. You know what I mean? Like if the actors aren't the right age and, you know, stuff like that, I'm happy they started anew. But yeah, I was a big fan of all the expanded media.
You're taking your podcast and you're doing some fundraising.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, the podcast actually started after Rebel Cause started.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
Tell me about Rebel Cause.
So Rebel Cause is a group of Star Wars fans dedicated to uniting the fandom and doing good in our community. Basically, we do that by having Star Wars themed events here in Lancaster and surrounding areas, where we do trivia, play like Star Wars related like tabletop games and all that stuff, and just bring people together in the same room, and just have a great time with other people. Because like my whole thing with social media is fantastic. You know what I mean? You can obviously connect with a lot of awesome people. I've met all of you through social media, stuff like that. Some of my best friends I've met through social media. But I miss that whole, like, back in the day, like, people had to get together to do stuff, and I kind of wanted to try and bring something like that back, because I didn't feel like, in Lancaster anyway, that there was a lot of that. So bringing people together and raising money for the homeless at Water Street Rescue Mission. I've always had a passion for helping the homeless. From a very young age, it always really bugged me to see homeless people. So that's just kind of how that happened.
Where did that come from? Where did you get this passion to reach out and help the homeless?
I'm not sure. It's just kind of always, I guess it's kind of through Star Wars, honestly. Like, it happened literally right here. My friend James Farbo and I of Farbo Co. We're sitting here watching the animated show Rebels. And in that, it's about a group of rebels that they're trying to save this planet. And in one of the early episodes, they actually take these crates of food to they call them Tarkin towns. It's like Hoovervilles.
Oh, okay.
And they're like helping the homeless there. And I was like, oh man, like I wish I could do something like that. And then I had one of those kind of moments. I'm like, I could do something like that. And we thought about it for a little bit and, came up with the name. What's our cause? Like, what's the the Rebel Cause. Rebel Cause, yeah. So then that's how that kind of happened.
And when did that start?
That was February 17th is our official start date. That was our first event. So it was only about a month of planning before our first event. We had it over at the comic store in the upper room, and 3 people came, and it was awesome. That was crazy for us, because we were like 3 people actually already like this, and yeah, it was crazy.
And now you're doing bigger events, right?
I think we had almost 40 people at our last event.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
so it's grown pretty crazy already, and yeah, it's been an awesome, very humbling experience for sure.
Now, do you get any feedback from any homeless people or from the shelter, and how you're going about raising this money? Like, oh, it's the Star Wars guy.
Yeah, I've been recognized now twice on the street as which is nuts. Like, it freaks me out a little bit. Yeah, they all know me over at Water Street. We actually had a tour a few months ago, like, because I'd always just drop stuff off, because I give them a call and I say, like, what do you need right now after we have a fundraiser? And they'll give me a list, and I collect all this stuff, and it was always kind of like, oh, here you go, and it was just like, that was cool. But I really wanted to see what where all the money was going, and kind of be able to tell all the fans of it, hey, here's actually what this is going to help. And if you've never taken a tour of Water Street, go tour Water Street. It is an incredible facility. They have a whole dental wing and a medical wing in there, like state-of-the-art stuff. Like,
Really?
it's all donation-based. It's fantastic.
So where is your donation going then? Where is your money that you're raising? Did they show you specifically, oh, hey, we've earmarked your money for this, or?
I don't just donate money.
Okay.
Because I think sometimes that's a little weird, because then you can't exactly see it. You know what I mean? So we'll buy food and goods. Like, if they're, the last time they told us, hey, we need like this XYZ food stuff. We really need dentures or denture supply kits. Feminine products are always a big thing, because that's something people don't really think of a lot. So we'll go out and buy all of that with the money, and then we take all of the goods to them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Back up a big truck, I guess. And...
Yeah, the last time it was my brother's big truck, and we filled it, and that was pretty awesome. I really liked seeing that full. It was cool.
What's your grand scheme, or what's your goal? Are you working towards an end game here?
A year from now, I'd like to be bigger. I'd like to have the events going on a little more often than we do, and just to keep helping Water Street. Really, that's that's the main thing for me. You know, the more we can do, that's how I kind of gauge how we're growing. Okay. For me. And obviously growing the podcast. I mean, it's been crazy. We joined the Brick City Blockade Podcast Network, and those guys have been amazing. Specifically, Rob and Vogt from the network. I just started a podcast last night. Actually, we recorded the first episode of a new one with them.
Oh, okay.
Com Chatter, it's called. It's our crossover between Rebel Chatter and Brick City. So that was awesome, and that's really focused on. We did a Jedi Code series where we took the Jedi Code and broke it down to how you could relate it to real life and use it in everyday life. And it had a lot of feedback. You know, people really responded to it. And so we're kind of doing a whole show about things like that. You know, how we can take these morals that we learned from Star Wars and our heroes, Luke Skywalker and all that, and really kind of be, not real life Jedi, because that's corny to say, but, you know, kind of real life Jedi.
Yeah. Cool. You said bigger and more often. How is more often and what is bigger?
I'd love to be able to rent out rooms in Tellus to be able to do it. That's already kind of being looked at. And just, you know, have more money coming in, you know, to be able to give stuff to the homeless more often, which it's already pretty big right now. Like I'd put up a post on Facebook the other night, and it was insane. At like 11:30 at night, when nobody's really, you know, on Facebook, it was a weekday, all that. There was a family affected by a fire in Harrisburg, and it was like my cousin's boyfriend's kid's mom and the kid, right? And I was like, listen, rebels, and we call them rebels, because that's the point. You know, it's a rebellion of hope is what we call it.
Okay. That's catchy.
Yeah. T-shirts are coming.
Awesome.
They actually are. We just designed them the other day.
Okay,
cool. So I put up this post, and I was like, let's see where it goes. Within an hour, there were like 50 to 100 comments and like 20, 30 shares, and we had such a big turnout of stuff just in a week, and basically helped this family rebuild after a fire. They lost everything. And it was crazy because it was cool to see us take all this stuff over to the family. And the son was there. The mom wasn't there at the time because she was staying with the father. The kid was staying with the father. And it just made me really happy to see this kid ran over. I put a box of toys in front of him, see him pull out a lightsaber and be like, oh, yeah. And like that was just like,
nice.
That's the point. You know what I mean? Just to make people feel good.
How'd you get into podcasting? Like,
I had always loved, I guess my podcasting hero is Kevin Smith, Smodcast and all that stuff. I was always listening to that, and I just enjoyed the thought of podcasting. You know, it could be more structured, or you could just have a conversation. And I had always wanted to do a podcast, but then after Rebel Cause was around for a while, I was doing videos where I'd like update everybody, and I was like, there's got to be an easier way to do this. And I was kind of talking to my dad, I'm like, why don't we just start a podcast? He's like, I have all the equipment, and my dad's a filmmaker, so he's like, I got all the stuff, let's just do it. And we just kind of started it, and from going on Facebook and following other podcast groups and all that stuff, it just kind of happened.
can you settle the big debate for someone who has never seen the movies?
Sure.
What order do you watch them in?
Okay, well, see, it's getting more and more complicated every day. Because now they're putting out 3 1/4 and 4, yeah. I would go 4, 5, 6, then probably go back and watch 1, 2, 3. I guess Han Solo and then Rogue One, and then 7, 8, and 9 when it comes out. You kind of want to see it in the order, you know what I mean?
Chronologically.
Well, the order that they were kind of released in, I'd say, you know, like you watch 4, 5, 6 first, because I think the twist of Vader being Luke's father is awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you start with 1, it's kind of like you know the whole time, because then you kind of get to go back after 6 and kind of watch how he fell. You know, his story. Realize he wasn't like a monster the whole time. Yeah. And he wanted to save his family, which I mean I think a lot of people can relate to. But
what's your favorite one?
Oh man, this is gonna be controversial to Star Wars fans,
Really?
but it's between the original one is always kind of on a pedestal above all the other ones because it's the first one.
What,
A New Hope.
Okay.
But I love Empire.
Empire's my
Sure. But Last Jedi is pretty close now.
Really?
And you know what? People had the same reaction to Last Jedi that they had to Empire when it came out.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a couple years, give it 10 years down the road, people are going to be like, oh, Last Jedi is one of the best Star Wars movies. Because now it's so controversial. But so it's between 5 and 8 for me, and people might get mad about that, but that's all right.